It's the simplest item in every home, one no family ever runs out of yet rarely thinks about. Soft white, folded neatly on the shelf. A small comfort that quietly ties the household together. But somewhere between need and habit, something changed. Walk into any store today, and the aisle stretches endlessly bright packages promising ultra softness, fresh scent, cotton touch. Too many choices, and not all of them equal. Because behind those comforting words, there are brands that meet every safety and quality mark, and others that quietly fall far below. And that's where the confusion begins. Which ones truly care for your family, and which only look clean on the outside? Today we're laying it all out. 7 toilet paper brands you should avoid at all costs, and 2 that are actually worth your trust. Stay until the end, because one simple roll can shape your family's health more than you think. We're in Charmin. Charmin built its empire on comfort, and for generations America believed in it. The name alone feels familiar, even safe. It's been in bathrooms since the 1930s, wrapped in soft blue packaging that promises gentleness and family warmth. But the truth is, comfort can hide a heavy footprint. Behind that softness lies a supply chain deeply rooted in virgin forest fiber, not recycled pulp, not bamboo, but freshly cut trees from some of North America's most vulnerable boreal regions. According to the 2024 issue with Tissue report by the Natural Resources Defense Council, Charmin once again earned an F grade for its fiber sourcing and chlorine-based bleaching process. The company continues to rely almost entirely on wood pulp from primary forests, where logging disrupts carbon storage, wildlife corridors, and local ecosystems that take centuries to heal. On paper, Charmin meets industry standards for hygiene and brightness. But the whitening comes from a method called elemental chlorine-free bleaching, safer than older chlorine gas systems, yet still producing trace organochlorin that persist in the environment. Each step keeps the paper gleaming, even if the process behind it isn't as clean. The brighter the roll, the more chemical stages it's seen. However, the problem isn't just industrial, it's psychological. Charmin's marketing perfected the language of innocent softness, care, clean for the whole family. Those words built trust so strong that few ever questioned what softness is made of. The brand became part of American nostalgia, from the Mr. Whipple ads of the 1960s to today's cartoon bears that equate cleanliness with joy. Yet beneath the laughter, the forest kept thinning. For decades, environmental advocates have urged the company to shift toward recycled or alternative fibers. Competitors have done so, proving softness doesn't have to mean sacrifice. Still, Charmin remains loyal to virgin pulp, arguing that consumers prefer the feel. And maybe that's the quietest cost of all, a collective choice for touch over conscience. Every roll feels light in the hand, but the weight rests somewhere else in the forest that won't grow back fast enough. Softness shouldn't cost a forest. 2 Angel Soft. It smells like comfort, a hint of lavender, a trace of fresh linen. The packaging even says softness, you can feel freshness, you can smell. For many families, Angel Soft isn't just toilet paper. It's routine. It's what home smells like. But that fresh scent isn't natural comfort, it's chemistry. Angel Soft, owned by Georgia Pacific, is one of the few brands still marketing scented toilet paper and scented cardboard tubes. Those pleasant aromas come from fragrance compounds and masking agents, ingredients that don't stay politely on the roll. With every use, small traces of those compounds touch the body's most sensitive skin. Dermatologists and gynecologists have warned for years, avoid scented toilet paper, wipes, or soaps in intimate areas. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists lists fragrance as a leading cause of contact irritation and dermatitis, particularly among women with sensitive skin. Even when labeled as gentle, these fragrances can include dozens of undisclosed chemicals, stabilizers, solvents, and preservatives, meant to keep the scent alive longer than it should. Angel Soft's website frames the fragrance as a light touch of freshness, but the irony is that freshness isn't fragrance. Cleanliness doesn't need perfume. In fact, many clinics note a rise in irritation linked to perfumed hygiene products, especially those marketed as family-friendly. And while Georgia Pacific earns billions each year selling these lavender comfort lines, the same issue with Tissue 2024 scorecard that reviewed Charmin also gave Angel Soft an F, not only for its reliance on virgin forest pulp, but for using chlorine-based bleaching in its production. So on one side, there's the chemical fragrance. On the other, the environmental residue. What begins as a scent of reassurance ends up touching two ecosystems, the forest that fed the paper and the skin that trusted it. Both deserve better care. Even so, the brand continues to thrive on familiarity. That faint floral note convinces us everything is clean, everything is okay. But comfort built on habit can be the hardest to question. Sometimes the softest thing you can do is go unscented. Try Kirkland Costco. Kirkland made saving feel responsible, the promise that buying in bulk wasn't just smarter, but somehow better. Every aisle at Costco tells the same quiet story: efficiency, practicality, value. Stacked high and shrink-wrapped tight, the warehouse looks like discipline turned into architecture. Families walk out with months of essentials, confident they've made the right choice. Yet behind those towering shelves lies a quieter equation, one that doesn't always balance in the planet's favor. The same efficiency that drives low prices also fuels a massive appetite for virgin pulp. Kirkland's paper line, like much of its store brand empire, is built on scale. The company's approach favors consistency and volume: one fiber source, one bleaching system, one global contract. It keeps production smooth, but leaves little room for renewal. Costco's own sustainability pages praise responsible sourcing, but the details remain vague. There's no clear commitment to fully recycled content or alternative fibers, no breakdown of how its suppliers manage forest regeneration. The result is a product that looks efficient on paper, yet demands a steady stream of fresh trees to meet the rhythm of mass consumption. When the goal is endless availability, sustainability often becomes a slogan rather than a standard. Moreover, the psychology of bulk buying adds its own layer. Shoppers believe that a 48-roll pack means freedom, no need to worry, no sudden shortages. But abundance has a strange effect. It distances people from consequence. When there's always more in storage, we forget what enough actually means. And the more rolls sold per trip, the greater the invisible cost in packaging, transport, and energy. Behind those pallets of paper lies an intricate supply chain moving millions of tons of pulp across continents, trucks, ships, and processing plants that never rest. Each roll may seem small, yet multiplied by millions. The impact grows into something industrial in scale. It's the paradox of modern convenience: we consume to feel secure even when security depends on restraint. Still, Costco's reputation for trust keeps the brand untouchable. Kirkland has become shorthand for reliability, and few want to question the product that seems to make life easier. But trust without transparency isn't value, it's faith. And faith, when tied to consumption, can turn into quiet neglect. Buying in bulk once meant thinking ahead. Maybe now it should also mean thinking deeper. When everyone buys the same roll, everyone shares the same cost. 4 quilted northern. It feels like luxury, 3 cushiony layers of silky smooth embossing, the kind of cloud-soft roll you might hold up almost reverently. That's the promise of quilted northern ultra plush. It claims to pamper, to lift the everyday into something decadent. But beneath that quilted surface lies a different story. Those 3 layers. According to supplier specifications, they consist of 2 softness sheets wrapped around a central absorbent core, engineered to appear thicker and richer to the eye. The brand boasts embossing technology and interlux layering, designed to feel premium. The texture becomes the selling point, so much so that softness is mistaken for quality. But texture isn't purity. On its own website, Quilted Northern says its wood is sourced from well-managed forests, and that for every tree used, it plants 2 new ones. That sounds responsible. Yet when you look closer, the ultra-plush variant still relies entirely on virgin fiber, while the sustainability message applies mostly to the ultra-soft and strong line. The so-called luxury roll, the one promising spa-like indulgence, is still built the old-fashioned way, from freshly cut pulp and chemically bonded layers. Each stage of that process, embossing, laminating, coating for softness, consumes more water, more heat, and more energy than simpler 2-ply papers. To make a pattern feel 3-dimensional, manufacturers use bonding agents, quaternary softeners, and lotion coatings that alter the paper's texture. That sensation you feel between your fingers isn't natural fiber. It's treated pulp bound by chemistry and pressure. The irony is that the company advertises no dyes, no inks, no added fragrance on some versions, yet the main difference still lies in density. More fiber means more trees. More layers mean more processing. The luxury you touch for a few seconds takes hours of refining, drying, and pressing steps that multiply environmental impact even while the product looks innocent and white. And this obsession with plushness feeds itself. Consumers learn to equate thickness with cleanliness, softness with care. But neither is a scientific measure of hygiene. What truly cleans is design, not decoration. The quilted patterns and pillowed feel only remind you of comfort while hiding the cost of achieving it. So before you reach for that roll, ask yourself, is this softness really comfort or just another layer of illusion? Because luxury, if it's real, shouldn't leave a trace. 5. Great value. Everyone loves a bargain, that quiet, reassuring moment when you load the cart, glance at the price tag, and think, I made a smart choice. Great Value, Walmart's signature home brand, was built entirely on that feeling. The promise is simple, the same comfort just for less. And for something as ordinary as toilet paper that feels like a safe bet. But the truth hiding beneath that isn't quite as comforting. In thousands of homes, shoppers have begun noticing a pattern: rolls that feel thinner, sheets that tear too easily, and paper that simply doesn't hold up the way it used to. People talk about having to use more sheets, replacing rolls twice as fast, or noticing that what was once soft now feels stiff and dry. The disappointment is subtle, but it adds up with every trip back to the store. Inside the factories that make these budget lines, margins are measured in fractions of a cent. To keep costs down, production often involves adjustments that most consumers would never notice, at least not until they do. Fiber ratios are tweaked. The pulp blend may shift from one supplier to another. Rolls are wound tighter to appear fuller. A fraction of thickness is shaved off each sheet. One decision after another, all justified by efficiency. On the surface, none of this feels alarming. You still get a familiar roll wrapped in bright plastic. You still pay less than a premium brand. But slowly the compromise becomes physical. The roll that once lasted a week now barely makes it through a few days. The paper feels fragile, and if it tears at the wrong moment, you're reminded exactly why cheap can be a dangerous word for something so personal. And yet Great Value remains one of the top-selling tissue brands in the United States. Not because people love it, but because it's there. It's convenient, it's familiar. It's always the first thing you see on the shelf. That's the real genius of low-price marketing. Repetition builds trust faster than reliability. But savings that exist only on paper aren't savings at all. If you're using 2 or 3 times the amount per visit, replacing rolls twice as often, and tossing more waste into the bin, what are you truly saving? The cost shifts from wallet to environment, from manufacturer to household, from short-term price to long-term waste. There's nothing wrong with wanting value, but value should mean endurance, safety, and honesty, not just a smaller number on a shelf label. When a product touches your family every day, it deserves scrutiny, no matter how ordinary it seems. Because the cheapest comfort is often the one that costs the most in the end. The lowest price often hides the highest footprint. 6 Amazon Basics, presto. You don't even see it on a shelf anymore, just a suggestion box on a glowing screen. Buy again. Customers also bought subscribe and save. That's where the paper rolls show up now, under names like Amazon Basics or Presto, quietly replacing familiar brands while promising convenience and value. And because the machine says it's fine, few pause to ask what's behind it. Online algorithms direct you to the cheapest, offer the best delivery date, the top-rated product. In the world of branded tissue, that means private label lines move through a pipeline of hidden mills, anonymous pulp, and minimal traceability. Instead of choosing known names and audited forests, you pick based on stars and algorithmic rank. Yet data reveal a glaring gap. These white label tissue lines repeatedly score poorly on sustainable sourcing, receiving failing grades for relying heavily on virgin forest pulp and opaque supply chains. Behind the 2-day delivery badge lies a network optimized for cost and speed, not transparency. One supplier may switch from one pulp source to another, one bleaching process to the next, depending on commodity prices and logistics. The product stays on your doorstep uninterrupted, but accountability gets stripped away. When the brand is just a sticker, and the supply chain is faceless quality, and ethics become optional. In practice, this means you might still get a roll that looks fine, but you can't verify what forest the fiber came from, which mill processed it, or how many hands touched it before it reached your home. The algorithm rewards the fastest, the cheapest, the highest rating, not the most traceable. Consumers trust the platform trusts the stars, and yet real sourcing remains invisible. What happens when an entire household supply hinges on algorithmic suggestions, habits form auto-reorder, one-click replenishment, little thought about the journey from tree to roll. The illusion is that convenience equals quality, but when transparency is missing, the cost shifts to the unseen forests, factories' transport, and ultimately your household's footprint. And we're already seeing the pushback. Legal actions allege that claims about sustainable fiber and eco-friendly paper were misleading digital platforms presenting private label tissue as responsible while masking the supply chain realities underneath. So here's the moment of clarity. When the product is faceless, no brand legacy, no disclosed mill, no visible chain, the accountability is faceless too. You still pay for the roll, but you might also be unknowingly paying for higher impact, more pulp, more energy, more transport. Online, it seems effortless. Behind screens, the roll came from somewhere you'll never see. In truth, convenience shouldn't mean ignorance. Beyond ratings, you deserve traceability. And still, the choice returns to you. When you look closer, the algorithm's favorite product isn't just the one it pushes. It's the one you pick without question. When the product is faceless, so is the accountability. Sette cotonelle. Morning light, a quiet bathroom, and the promise of freshness. For many households, Cottonelle has become a symbol of care. The blue and white pack that whispers clean before the day begins. It's a brand built not on softness or price, but on the idea of hygiene. Feel fresh, cleaner than ever, rippled for a deeper clean. Those phrases have worked for decades. Yet behind that sense of reassurance lies a truth most people never consider: cleanliness, when industrialized, can quietly turn into chemistry. Over the years, Cottonelle has expanded beyond paper. Its flushable wipes and cleansing cloths promise next-level hygiene, combining moisture surfactants and preservatives for what the ads call a refreshing clean. But what most consumers don't see is that these very additives, the same ones that make the wipe glide, can also leave invisible residues on the skin. Ingredients like mild detergents, lotions, and preservatives such as methylisothiazolinone or phenoxyethanol are used to prevent mold growth in the package, but they don't vanish after use. They linger, interacting with skin that's meant to stay balanced, not sterilized. Dermatologists have long warned that these so-called gentle cleansers can disrupt the skin's microbiome, the thin ecosystem of good bacteria that protect against irritation. Too much clean can mean too little protection. For people with sensitive skin, even trace exposure can lead to dryness or discomfort over time. Yet the packaging still uses language like safe for everyday use and flushable for convenience. Meanwhile, plumbers and wastewater experts tell a different story. Across cities, these flushable wipes are found tangled in filters, pumps, and sewage systems. They don't break down like tissue. They twist together, forming massive clogs nicknamed fatbergs that cost utilities millions each year to remove. Every wipe flushed for freshness becomes another problem waiting downstream. The irony is striking: a product designed for hygiene ends up harming both plumbing and potentially the skin it was meant to protect. And because the word flushable carries no strict regulatory definition, companies can use it freely. Consumers assume that what vanishes down the drain is gone for good, but in truth, it simply moves the problem out of sight. By now, we know that real cleanliness doesn't need extra layers of chemistry. It comes from balance, from letting the body's natural systems do what they're designed to do. A plain, fragrance-free roll of tissue might not sparkle in an ad, but it does the job quietly and safely. The story of Cottonelle isn't about deception. It's about how easily trust can be shaped by language, how the word clean can sound scientific even when it isn't. In the end, the purest hygiene isn't the one that foams, shines, or glows. It's the one that leaves nothing behind. Transition. After all the noise, the softness, the scents, the promises of comfort and care, what truly matters is trust. Because not every brand hides behind illusion. A few still treat paper as a responsibility, not a product. They focus on traceability, on honest sourcing, on clean processes that need no perfume or persuasion. Now that we've seen what to avoid, it's time to turn toward the ones that still do it right. The ones that prove pure isn't a color, it's a principle. Let's meet the brands that bring transparency back to something as simple and as human as a roll of paper. Oit Marcal. It doesn't look special, and maybe that's exactly why it matters. No pastel packaging, no soft focus ads, no claims of luxury softness or spa-like clean. Just a plain paper wrap stamped with a name that's been around long enough to outlast the trends. Markel doesn't try to charm you. It just shows up, does its job, and leaves behind something rare in this industry: quiet honesty. At first glance, it might seem too simple. A roll of paper made from recycled fiber, no perfume, no gloss. But look closer, and you'll find a legacy that reaches back generations. Markel began producing recycled household paper in the middle of the 20th century, long before sustainability became a buzzword. What started as a small mill on the banks of the Passaic River in New Jersey grew into one of the first American companies to prove that comfort and conscience could coexist. While others bragged about whiteness and softness, Markel built its reputation on substance, on using what was already here rather than taking what didn't need to be cut. Over the years, that philosophy became a habit more than a headline. Each roll is made from 100% recycled fiber, not partially, not up to, but fully. The paper isn't bleached with chlorine, isn't dyed for brightness, and carries no artificial scent to mask its authenticity. Its the color paper was meant to be a soft, natural hue that speaks quietly of renewal. Even quietly, the company's resilience tells its own story. In 2017, a devastating fire tore through the Markel mill. For most corporations, that might have been the end, a quiet closure, a headline, and then disappearance. But for this small-town manufacturer, it became a test of identity. The community rallied. Workers came back. Slowly, production restarted using the same principles that defined them: recycled fiber, low-impact processing, local employment. It wasn't glamorous, but it was good work, the kind that built loyalty instead of headlines. Meanwhile, the industry around them kept chasing softness, brightness, and speed. But Markel stayed steady. It never joined the race for premium because its mission wasn't to impress, it was to endure. In a marketplace obsessed with perfection, that kind of humility feels almost radical. Through it all, one thing stands out: integrity doesn't always come wrapped in design. Sometimes it comes in brown paper and simple truth. A longtime worker once said, "We don't make perfect paper, we make honest paper." That line sums up the brand better than any marketing slogan ever could. And somehow that honesty feels like a kind of luxury on its own, the kind that doesn't sparkle or shout, but lasts. Markel doesn't sell image, it sells intention. It's not trying to impress you, it's trying to serve you. Because in the end, the most decent thing a brand can do isn't to promise perfection. It's to keep its word, one recycled roll at a time. 7th generation? For 7th generation, clean was never just about white, it was about right. Long before sustainability became a selling point, this Vermont-based brand was already asking harder questions, not how soft a roll could feel, but how gently it could be made. The name itself came from the Iroquois principle that every decision should consider its impact 7 generations into the future. It's an idea that feels almost radical in an age of 2-day shipping and instant replacements to build something disposable, yet still think about legacy. From the start, 7th generation treated the word clean as a promise, not a pitch. The brand's household paper line is made from 100% recycled fiber. No bleach, no dyes, no fragrance, no bright white illusion. The paper carries the faint warmth of natural pulp, the color of unfiltered integrity. Even the packaging tells a story: minimal ink recycled content, and full ingredient disclosure printed where everyone can see. It's not glamorous, but it's transparent, and that transparency has become the brand's quiet power. Over the decades, the company has stood out, not for scale, but for sincerity. They've joined the B Corporation movement, opening their books and supply chains to public accountability. Their sustainability reports read less like marketing and more like mission statements, measurable goals, verified audits, and the humility to admit where progress still lags. They were one of the first major brands to advocate for ingredient disclosure in household products, pushing for legislation that would make transparency the norm rather than the exception. And still, what makes 7th generation rare isn't the certifications or the clever packaging, it's the consistency. Year after year, while competitors chase ultra-soft trends or lean into buzzwords like EcoBlend, 7th generation stays in its lane: recycled, renewable, responsible. That steadiness has earned it a loyal following, not just from eco-conscious consumers, but from families who simply want products that keep their promises. Meanwhile, the brand continues to operate like a company that sees its customers as citizens, not shoppers. Its outreach campaigns focus on systemic change, climate advocacy, equality, and manufacturing cleaner supply chains. Their motto, "Come clean," applies to everyone, including themselves. And that humility gives the brand something most corporations can't replicate: moral credibility. Of course, perfection doesn't exist. Recycled fiber has limits, packaging still leaves a footprint, and scaling sustainability is a constant struggle. But seventh-generation strength lies in acknowledging those flaws and striving anyway. Their purity isn't about spotless surfaces, it's about honest effort. In that choice, there's a lesson: purity isn't a color or a claim, it's a principle. It's the understanding that small things, even a roll of tissue, can carry intention. One of their longtime employees once said, "We don't just make paper for today, we make it for the world we'll hand over tomorrow." Maybe that's what real clean looks like, not dazzling white, but quietly right. In the end, the story isn't really about toilet paper, it's about awareness. Every brand, every choice carries a story about what we value most: comfort, convenience, or conscience. We began with illusion, the whiteness, the softness, the promise of pure. But along the way, we found something far stronger: truth. Real purity isn't about the color of the roll or the smoothness of the touch. It's about transparency, about knowing where things come from and trusting how they're made. If there's one thing to take from this journey, it's this: awareness is power. Every small decision, every product we buy, every brand we support shapes the world we'll pass on. Because in the end, clean isn't a color or a claim. It's a choice, one that, when made wisely, keeps both our homes and our conscience truly clear.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.